Hello, this is FightMe, and today I will be ranking all the Total War Rome 2 missile units on the tier list. So first we got 6 really strong and armored archers. These are the best archers in the game. The Syrian Archer doesn't have a lot of missile damage, but it got 40 armor, which is really high for a missile unit, and that's why I have to put it at S tier. Then there is the Syrian Heavy Bowman. These are the best archers in the game. 35 armor, 5 less than the Syrian Archer, but this one has 40 missile damage. So this archer will win against every single other archer in the game, and it got precision shots, so this one has to be at the top of S tier. Then we got the Neboti Bowman. This is basically a Syrian ripoff, but without precision shot. Then we got the Getae Heavy Bowman. So I'm pretty sure these have 30 armor. So they have the armor of a Cretan Archer, but still have 35 missile damage. It's at the bottom of S tier, but for 440, it's not a bad archer unit, for sure. Then you got the Cretan Archers. For 600, it's an excellent archer unit. Can do a lot of damage against infantry, but also against other archers. So it's very versatile and very nice to have. And that's why it's right behind the Syrian Heavy Bowman. But the Cushite Elite Archer, I'm really not a fan of this one. It is a strong archer unit, 30 armor, 40 missile damage, and it's strong in combat, but it costs 700. 100 more than the Cretan and the Syrian Heavy Archer, but you're only getting better melee skills for it. I'm forced to still put it at S or A tier, because it is a good archer unit, but I really think it's overpriced, and that's why much less cost effective. So I have to put it at A tier. Next up we got 4 Peltas units, and they all have 10 ammunition, which is the max for a Peltas unit. These are excellent to bring in your army. The only thing is that these 3 don't have 41 missile damage, but I'm a very fan of the Nectune Paltas for 470, got precision shot, and it got fast reload, and it has 10 ammunition. This belongs to 100% at the S tier. It's just a very nice unit to bring, and you should definitely try them out if you never picked them. But then you got the light Peltas, and the thing about these is they don't have precision shot, they cost 10 less compared to the Nectune Paltas, 460. They don't have as much armor as the Nectune Paltas. It's just not a fantastic Peltas unit. It is good, but it's way more riskier to bring because it's actually worth to shoot this one down, and that's why I have to put it at the bottom of A tier, for now at least. And then we got the Neboti Impaltas, which cost 500, are basically the same as the light Peltas, but cost more, so that's why they're below the light Peltas. The Pick Peltas is such a strong unit. It costs 720. It's 100% safe investment. You get your 10 volleys Pila off with 41 missile damage, and then afterwards it's also excellent in combat. Nearly want to put it at the top of S tier, but archers are just more useful, especially in sieges, and that's why I have to put it under these archers, but definitely above the Nectune Paltas. Next up we got the Peltas units with 41 missile damage, but without the 10 ammunition, this time 7. The Nubian Heavy Skirmisher of Mesacely is, I think, the most cost-effective Peltas unit in the game. It's like a Celtic warrior melee, 41 missile damage, pretty high armor and high missile block chance, and it's again such a safe investment, so 100% at S tier, even above the Pick Peltas. Next up we got the Thracian Peltas. So these are a little bit lower armor, basically the same in combat, also 41 missile damage and 7 ammunition, but I would actually even put them under the Pick Peltas, because they're pretty low armored and their missile block chance is not that great, so they're very vulnerable to missile fire. That's why a much less safe unit to bring, and that's why I have to put them under the Mesacely Heavy Skirmisher. The Pontic Paltas has high armor, 65, 7 ammunition, 41 missile damage with precision shot, but is not that great in combat compared to these two, so I would have to put them even under the Nectune Paltas. They cost 450. They are a very strong unit, but because they're not as great as these in combat, I'll have to put them under the Nectune Paltas. The Thracian low tier Peltas cost 330, has 41 missile damage, but is only never worth bringing for the Odrysian Kingdom, because the Thracian Peltas that they have are just much stronger, because they're also good in combat, and you're paying like 150 more for it, and it has a little bit lower armor, so that's why a riskier unit to bring, and that's why I have to rate it under the Pontic Paltas. The Eastern Javelin Man has also 41 missile damage, but this one is very low armored and very bad in combat. Cost 370, so more expensive than the Thracian Peltas, and that's why they are below them. Next up we got the Rhodian Slinger. The Rhodian Slinger is the best slinger in the game. They have such a high killing potential, but I would still put them under the archers, because they're less useful as the archers, because archers can shoot over everything. I also would even put them under these Peltas units, but still above the Thracian low tier Peltas. The Belarus Slinger is basically the same, costs only 30 less, but it's a little bit worse than the Rhodian Slinger, and that's why they're directly under them. Next up we got the Peltas unit with 35 missile damage and only 7 ammunition, so these are again different than all these kind of Peltas. This one has a lot of armor and is because of that a very safe unit to bring, but this unit is not that great in combat. It has no 41 missile damage or 10 ammunition, and that lowers their killing potential a lot, and that's why I'm forced to put it at B tier. Next up we got the Getae Peltas. These cost 450, is very armored like the Libyan Peltas. This one is also very strong strong in combat. 40 melee damage for a missile unit is insane. The highest, I think, for all missile units in the game. And I will put it even above the light Peltas. The Spartan Peltas for 420 is weaker in combat, lower armored, and is because of that below the Libyan Peltas. Next up we got the expensive light archers. The first one is the elite Persian archer. As everyone must know, this is a 100% scam unit. You're paying 200 more for melee stats, which you don't need as an archer unit. The most important stats for an archer unit is armor, missile damage, and ammunition. And that's why this one belongs at F tier. You should never bring this archer, never. The Gallic Hunter is also a little bit expensive. It costs 450. It doesn't have a lot of armor. It doesn't have the 40 missile damage, but what it got is guerrilla deployment, which is very useful, and it can shoot while staying hidden. So a very fun and interesting unit, and can be very handy to use, especially in sieges on attack, to guerrilla deploy your equipment. And that's why it has to be at A tier, and I would put them even above the Cushite elite archer. I'm really not a fan of them. Even a worse unit than the Cushite elite archer, which is also from Kush, which costs 440. It doesn't have guerrilla deployment, and it can't shoot while being hidden. It costs the same as this archer unit. It has no extra armor, and it's absolutely shit. It's useless. You're paying way too much for it, and that's why I have to put it at C tier. I would actually put it at F tier. Never bring this. Never. Now we got 3 Peltas units, which are pretty low armored, but has a lot of killing potential also in melee. So the Swaby Peltas unit costs 450, is excellent in combat for the price and for a Peltas unit, and that's why it's pretty useful, but you should never really bring them as Swaby because you have so many better options. But it's 100% a B tier unit. I would put them even above the Libyan Peltas. Next up is the Agranian X-Men. This one has a very high charge for a Peltas unit, also excellent in melee. Again, a little bit on the low side of armor. It is safer than the Swaby one, but it also costs 500. I always forget the name of this unit, but I'm pretty sure it's the Celtic tribe Peltasman or something like that, but it costs 320, I'm pretty sure. It is pretty good in combat, but it's under these Peltas units, because if you shoot them, they die instantly. And next up we got the low tier, low armored 125 range archers. The only archers that really stand out is the Swaby one, which has instead of 35 missile damage, 40 missile damage, which is actually one of my favorite missile units in the game, and that's why I have to put it at S tier under the slingers. And the other one is the Sabian Archer. So these all cost around 250 to 300, but this one costs 360. It's way overpriced. You have exactly the same stats. It's nothing special in combat, and the Sabian Archer is dog shit. F tier 100%. These 3 are scam units. Never bring them. I actually have to put it at C tier. They can be useful, especially as Saba, even though you're paying 100 more than you should. And then for the rest of these archers, they all have more or less the same stats, but are a little bit different in terms of cost and melee stats. So for this one, you just got to trust me. I would have to put them all at B tier because they are useful, because they're such a low cost. And if you can shoot infantry while not getting shot by other archers, they can rack up a lot of kills for a low cost unit, especially if you shoot non-shield side. And to be honest, I would actually put them at A tier because they can be very useful and have a lot of potential, but I would still put them under the Peltas units. There we go. This is the right order. The Greek Archer is actually the most cost effective one. And now we got 2 Peltas units with a lot of armor, but still 32 missile damage. These are safe units to bring, but are not that great, so I have to put them at C tier. I'm just really not a fan of them. And personally, I would put the Celtic one at F tier. Now we got the Meteor Slingers, and the Iceni one is one of the best of those. It got high health compared to the Eastern and the Gorgo Skirmisher of Sparta, 25 armor, and it got very high armor piercing damage. So this slinger is very strong, even to shoot infantry in the front. So this definitely belongs at A tier. I would put it at the bottom of A tier. Then we got the Gorgo Skirmishers of Sparta. Really not a bad unit, and that's why I have to put it behind the Iceni one. Now we got the Eastern Slinger, which I'm really not a fan of. I just got the feeling it costs too much and it doesn't have a lot of armor. And even though the missile block chance is pretty good, this slinger just feels like it's pretty weak and a little bit overpriced. But yeah, I have to put it at B tier, and I will give it a top at B tier, because it's still a strong slinger. Next up we got interesting Peltas units. These are basically all scams. The Roman one, the Getae one, the Egyptian one, the Iberian one, and the Macedonian one. The Carthaginian one too. But this one is actually still pretty good in combat, so I have to put it near the Nervii one. But these are all overpriced. You're paying 320 for basically the same as some of these Peltas, which you can buy for like 200. But no, now you're paying 300 and it's just way overpriced. This one still got some armor, but these are just low armored, can't do shit, way too overpriced. The exact order would be the Getae one first, then the Celtic Skirmisher, then the Iberian Peltas, then the Carthaginian one. After that the Macedonian one, and at last we have the Roman one. The Roman one is the worst. And now we're going to around the 300 and 400 cost archer units. So these are nearly all the same, unless 3 of them, which is the Parthian Foot Archer, the Sumerian Archer, and the Swaby Archer. The Swaby Archer is special because it got a spear in combat, and it's actually pretty decent in combat also. And I would have to put it at A tier and above the Cushite Elite Archer. Then we got the Nubians, the Syrians, Iberians, the Eastern. These are basically all the same. The exact order of them is the Nubian first, after that the Persian, and behind that the Eastern. But now we got two special archers. The Parthian foot costs 400 and the Sumerian archer costs 330. These have both 30 missile damage compared to these which got 35. These are very strong and very nice for the cost. The Parthian foot got precision shot and are 100% at S tier. I love these archers. I honestly would rather have them over these armored archers, but I just have to be reasonable and put them behind them, because these are very strong to counter infantry, just to shoot infantry with, not really to fight archers. And the Sumerian one for 330 got almost the same sets without precision shot and cost 70 less. So this one is above the Parthian foot. Very nice archer units. And now we got around 6 Peltos units, which cost around 200 and deal between 29 and 32 missile damage. These are pretty nice to bring, pretty cost effective, and they all belong at B tier. I would put them even above these Peltos units. And the right order for them would be this: the Macedonian Peltas at the top and the Greek one at the bottom. Then we got the slingers, the low tier slingers, which are pretty different, but there are a few which really stand out. And which one really stand out is the best one, which is the Swabian one, which is insanely good. This one doesn't die. Literally, if you spread it out as thin as possible, it just doesn't die. And that's why it belongs at God tier, even above the Eastern Peltas 100%. A very strong slinger unit. I think I would have to put these Peltas units over here. I think in S tier it's just a little bit overrated for them. Behind that, my second most favorite slinger unit is the Celtic one. 25 armor, an excellent slinger unit, but I would still put it at B tier above the Eastern slingers. Behind the Celtic one we got the Iberian, then you got the Hellenic one, after that the Egyptian one, then the Saba slinger, then the slinger of Odrysian Kingdom, behind that the RDI one, after that the Macedonian slinger, and the Cushite slinger is that bad that I have to put it even behind the Eastern slinger. It's just the worst of all slingers. And there you go, this is the list. These are duplicated accidentally, but yeah, this is basically the whole list. It doesn't really fit on my screens, so I will download the tier list and put it now on the screen. Let me know if this tier list helped you a little bit, understanding which Peltas or missile units are worth to bring. I'm curious if you guys would agree with this tier list. For more tier list videos, make sure to check this playlist out, and I will see you guys there. Bye bye.